Y'all's ready to board the knuckle train of Fist's planet? In Season 1, Episode 18 of Adventure Time, Finn and Jake end up having to venture through a dungeon alone to find out how much they truly need one another. This episode, it is quite straightforward and basic, and it uses a thematic point that most cartoons use, which is, once you're alone without your buddy, and you realize what kind of teamwork you used to have, that's when you truly appreciate each other's abilities and find that newfound respect. As I said, this is a theme that's regurgitated in tons of cartoons, and it's a message you see over and over and over again, which is learning to appreciate your buddy's abilities in the absence of your buddy. Now, it doesn't make the episode bad, but I wouldn't call this episode outstanding. I like it a decent amount, and I'd call it a good episode. But it's not an excellent episode. The episode is solid fun because of how entertaining it is to watch Finn try to traverse across all these obstacles and get past all these creatures to clear the dungeon. This is the allure for Finn. It's the thrill of the activity itself. It's not the riches or rewards, it's not the goal at the end of the dungeon. I mean, it's the Dungeon of the Crystal Eye, and we set up some really empty and inane lore about the Crystal Eye, but the audience doesn't know what the Crystal Eye does. The audience has no idea what the backstory to the Crystal Eye is, but it gives the dungeon a spark of individuality, and that's all that's needed to get Finn enticed about it. And it's the journey to the Crystal Eye that's Finn really after, and this is what sucks him in, and this is also what makes it so fun for the audience. The episode really evokes kind of that childhood feel when you're just running around the neighborhood and you're using your imagination to make everything much more grand than it actually is. But it's just so much fun. Of course, in this episode, Finn faces real danger and real hazards. While Finn is super gung-ho and doesn't even want to have lunch, as we saw in The Witch, Jake is much more lackadaisical towards adventuring and can put it off. Jake demonstrates here that he sees himself as a sort of guardian for Finn. He plays the guardian role in that he lets Finn run around and have his adventures, but as soon as Finn gets into real trouble, Jake is there to help protect him, and Jake is the muscle here, while Finn is just the kind of the rambunctious child who runs around and has all these miscellaneous little abilities, and Jake feels he is the reason why Finn is able to do what he does. This of course infuriates Finn, who thinks he's capable of doing everything on his own, and he sets out to clear the dungeon in 11 minutes, which is a nice little nod to the length of each episode. A lot of the lines of dialogue this episode are just spot on and make you chuckle hard, such as the following examples.
Whatever you want, Mama.
I'll get that Crystal Eye on my own, with my own odors. I rode the knuckle train?
I'm going to unzip your skin and wear you like a little coat.
That last one's probably reaching the limit of what's allowed in a children's show. So Finn quickly finds out that running through the dungeon alone gets his bread and butter messed up pretty badly by all the inhabitants. And for a show that isn't allowed to showcase blood or serious injury, Adventure Time gets across a character being beat up so well. The simplicity actually helps in a way, because you're able to contort the character's face and give an image of a nearly broken nose, and make the skin actually red, so it's bruised and swollen. And it's a great, great visual image of just how badly Finn gets beat up without taking it over the top and making it, too violent. I think that's awesome. Often in, anime where it's still right for children and you're not allowed to show blood, you get, scratch marks and scuffs on the character's clothing. Here, Finn gets seriously jacked up, and it's awesome. So, throughout the course of Adventure Time, there are multiple occasions, rare as they may be, where Finn displays somewhat of pick-up artist-like tendencies. We actually get an example of this in this episode, when Finn tells a monster,
Don't flaunt it if you're not gonna give it up!
So this is before Finn even descends into the deep bowels of puberty. This is kind of almost before he even develops a strong attraction for bubblegum or anybody else for that matter. So it's a bit interesting. You could say that perhaps Finn as a child was influenced by the works of J.T. Dogzone. Jake, in his younger, more naive, more stupid years. And perhaps this is where Finn got this sort of language from. Or perhaps the creators just made a mildly sexist joke. Adventure Time has so many little details that I feel can be co-opted in later episodes, where perhaps they weren't planned, but the creators looked at what they did already and said, let's build on that. I think it works. I think you could say that Finn says these mildly sexist things sometimes because perhaps Jake influenced him a little bit, and when Jake wasn't paying attention, his book got read. Mind games. What a work. Jake, you should have burned that thing ages ago. Anyway, eventually Finn and Jake meet up in a cage where you guys, you could totally fit through those bars. Like, seriously, Finn, you can just straight up jump out of those bars, and Jake can easily stretch out. Jake can grow small. Well, why do you guys need to, like, burn the rope and drop the pot that's cooking you? You can get out of this cage so easily. This scene is weird to me. I just don't really get it, because what? They're not imprisoned at all. Finn, why are you so down? You could have totally gotten out of there even without Jake. Though it's great you two did finally get together the way you did. Although I wonder how the Guardian Angel captured Jake in the first place. That part's a bit weird to me, but it's fine. Jake probably just let it happen. While it's believable Finn would have trouble with dungeons alone because he doesn't quite have the power of his buddy, it's a little hokey that Jake had such trouble going through the dungeon due to sucking at a spitting contest. I kind of wish they played up a bit more that Jake's a dog, so like, for example, if a monster throws some meat or a sausage, Jake is tempted to go, eat it and run after it. I like the thing with the laser pointer, that was great, but it felt a little hokey. I wish they kind of played up a bit more as to what Finn's strengths are, instead of these miscellaneous, tidbits. It's funny, they're going for a joke here, clearly, but I kind of wish they did push a bit more to showcase Jake's true weaknesses in venturing through dungeons by himself, because let's face it, he actually isn't all into that, and at this point, Finn probably has more experience with it, even though he's not as strong as Jake, and isn't as good at dealing with the more advanced monsters. I gotta say, there are two awesome monsters in this episode that I wish would return in the future, even for just a little cameo appearance. The cat that has approximate knowledge of all things, and this guardian angel demonic-esque thing. Oh man, I love them both. Guardian angel? Oh man, I hope it gave nightmares to children 7 and under. I really do.
Trust in your
Guardian angel.
Oh, it is great. In her disguised form, she actually looks a lot like Princess Bubblegum, so I'm curious if she actually kind of is capable of shifting her appearance to match what her victim finds most pleasing, because as we all know, Finn is kind of developing this crush on Princess Bubblegum. So maybe when the Guardian Angel transformed to pick Jake up and put him, in her bowl of soup, maybe she transformed into something else. I almost feel like she would have this power, but perhaps that is just her one and only disguise. I think it'd be cooler if she actually shapeshifts a little bit more. Either way, her face, her true face, I love it, it's awesome. And her being in that white dress just makes it more creepy and disturbing. The cat, oh man, what an interesting design, making part of the arm invisible and part of the leg, and having these weird, pink projections, and having the tail start from where it does. It's just little quirks that make the design really memorable. I really like it, and he is such a funny character, he's great.
Now you die.
I actually would prefer if he had no powers at all. It's this trope of a character convinces themselves they have some kind of, like, superpower that's kind of mild, but they don't actually have it, they just think they do. I think it's really funny if the cat just thinks he has approximate knowledge, but in reality he's just guessing at everything. Jim the human boy. I love this cat character. God, make the cat character return one day, please. Make him have some sort of small role in a future episode. It would be great. And wrapping things up, I really appreciate how at the end of the episode, Princess Bubblegum is the one who saves the day. She gets both Finn and Jake out of a situation where they're pretty much about to die, and she seals up these crystal eye beings back into whatever dimension, portal, chamber, whatever that they came from. It's all her, and she does it super competently and super quickly. No nonsense, and it was fantastic, because up till now, Princess Bubblegum has just, other than, being a smart woman doing science, she's just been in situations where she needed to be saved. In the Enchiridion, Finn saves her from falling off the castle tower. And in Ricardio, she gets, pretty much kidnapped and tied up, and Finn and Jake again have to save her. So I believe this is the first instance where Princess Bubblegum takes control into her own hands and, does something physical and actually saves the male duo. And that's really nice. I really love it. It's a great thing, and Adventure Time, honestly, it didn't start out quite strong with its female characters. I think it was a very male-centered show in the beginning. It still is throughout it, but more so at the start. And then as the season goes on, and especially as we get into the later seasons, a lot of the females start being more dynamic and having much larger roles, and feeling really fleshed out. And even though Princess Bubblegum does something for, 15 seconds total, I think it's great. Just getting her to save the day instead of Finn and Jake doing it, it's awesome.